And we're back for another episode of Inside the Line, Real Stories by Real Cops. I'm Dave Rattigan, across from Dale Lawrence, retired police officer. And we've got a couple of guests today, and we're going to play a little game. We got Fireman Kurt. Some of you might remember him from his appearance not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago. He's come down, and we're going to play a little game called Dale and Fireman Kurt Exchange War Stories. We have a special celebrity judge here, another guest. Jake Hall, comedian who's worked in the United States and in Bangkok. We know what he was doing in Bangkok.
What was he doing, Dave?
Spent his last night in Bangkok. and he's going to be our judge. Jake, how you doing?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing well.
All right.
Fireman Kurt, you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Okay, I got to do a couple of plugs and then we're going to go. I just want to tell people if they want to listen to more podcasts, go to insidetheline.org. And if they want to send us an email, realstoriesbyrealcops@gmail.com. And if they want to share us, we'd really appreciate it because we're trying to build our listenerships beyond our current list of Dale's relatives.
Well, no, Dave, I got an email from someone from the Lawrence, Massachusetts area, also known as the Merrimack Valley, and I guess a bunch of Sparkies. That's fireman term for firemen.
That's everybody's term for firemen.
Is that everyone's term for firemen?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
All right. What do I know?
Although
is that what it is, Kurt?
I don't think I've ever heard that.
Oh, okay.
Isn't it also the term for firebugs?
Yes.
Well,
same thing.
One and the same. But anyway,
Job security.
they're from Lawrence, Mass. A bunch of firemen up in Lawrence, Mass. You want to know what Lawrence, Massachusetts
I love
is known
Lawrence,
for?
Massachusetts.
There's three popular things.
I know what it's for. I know what it's known for. It's known for the finest community college students in all of Massachusetts.
Absolutely. Well, beside that, it's known for the arson capital of Massachusetts.
Uh-huh.
They got some really, really attractive and inexpensive prostitutes up there, Dave.
Okay,
if you ever need this one, great place to dump a body. The Merrimack River runs right through the city. Push the body right in. It's going to float down to Lowell or wherever the Merrimack outlets
goes
to.
It goes the other way.
The other way? Okay.
Yep. It goes
so that's what Lawrence is known for.
Well, that sounds great. That sounds
Let's
great.
have a field trip.
That makes the city. And I'd say there's hardworking cops there. Hardworking firefighters. I know a few of the cops. I don't know many firefighters from there, but hardworking guys.
Absolutely.
And women. And
women,
them all. Oh, yeah,
and the transgenders and whoever else we have to make happy out there.
Because here's the thing, Jake. You never know who's going to pull you over for speeding. And so, anyway, we have some listeners from Lawrence, Mass.
Yeah, I just said that, Dave.
I know. I thought there was more to that story.
Well, the only thing more to the story is that we were lucky to get Kurt back. I didn't know this, but Kurt told me he got a bunch of emails. A lot of the podcast people out there, the rednecks loved him. All the Southern podcasts loved him. Really? And I said, I got to get this kid back on here because he has that Southern honest accent about him. People love that.
Yeah, people have no idea that he picked it up in acting class.
Had a layover in Dallas one time.
Yeah, that Southern accent, it comes on you quickly and it stays with you. I lived in Florida for a couple of months, and I came back up here. I was talking with that drawl for about 6 more months.
Jake, you got any Filipino or Thailand accents? What do you got?
No, just try and stick with the American accent.
Well, how about this one?
Me so horny. Me so horny. You keep lying. Me love you long time.
That was I'm not going to sleep for a while.
All right,
for that one.
Go ahead, Dave.
I think he's used that line before.
Oh, I think he probably has back in his dress wearing days. Jake, you're going to be the judge for this, right? So Dale and Fireman Kurt are going to exchange war stories because, as you know, firefighters and cops, one thing they both share in common is that they know that their job is tougher than the other person's job. And they also know how to do the other person's job better than they do. Is that about right, Fireman Kurt?
I agree.
All right. And we know that they're very humble people. They're not storytellers necessarily. I'm just kidding about that, Jake. We know this, right?
Their conflicts almost never make the news.
Yeah, good point. So what are we looking for these stories? The two criterion I think that we decided is which story is more shocking and which speaker can convey the illusion of truth to what is clearly a fabricated story. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, and then you're going to tell them who the winner is. You're going to decide who the winner is. You're the one and only judge.
Sounds good to me.
Just remember, brother, you might not get out of this house alive if Dale Lawrence doesn't win. Veil threat.
I know. One thing that I found really interesting about this place, and I don't know if he might have gone over this with you, Fireman Kurt, but there are hidden weapons all over this place. It's really fun. I mean, we're sitting in a dining room. You would think to yourself, oh, there are no hidden weapons here. But in fact, there are an array of hidden weapons.
A lot better when I have my 4 and 5-year-old nieces and nephews come on over and they find them.
Yeah.
A couple of K-bars, a butterfly knife from the Philippines.
We got that also.
Absolutely.
We got a samurai sword in the corner.
A samurai sword?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, you're not welcome at our house, Dave. If we weren't doing the podcast, you probably wouldn't be welcome here.
I probably, yeah. And how would you let me know I wasn't welcome? You'd say, "Here's
Samurai
my
sword."
All right, so we're gonna let the contest begin. We'll start with you, Fireman Kurt.
I titled this one Human Pinata. And the call came in. There's a man hanging from a tree out in the woods. And a relative meets us at the trailhead and guides us in about a half mile. His uncle had committed suicide. He rode a bike in, climbed 20 feet up in a tree, crawled out on a far branch over in a ledge. Now he's 30 feet up, ties himself off with about 6 feet of rope, texts his family goodbye and his location, then jumps off the branch. We arrive to the Human Pinata with half the family screaming and yelling that he's still alive and get him down. The family is ushered out of the area, and it's in a state park, and we don't know who has responsibility. If it's our town, the next town. Eventually, the state police come out, and they arrive with a team to take pictures. They're discussing how to get him down, and police officer, of course, goes, "Shoot the rope." So, no, we're not going to shoot the rope.
I'm a pretty good shot, Kurt. I could have shot that rope.
So, yeah, well, can you catch him when he falls? So, no, what they did is they got the rope rescue team from the fire department, and they put a harness on the rope and used a carabiner and a clamp, cut the rope and lowered him down. In the end, it turns out he was a level 3 sex offender going to jail. And kind of changed the attitude a little bit.
Now, once they found out, they decided to use broomsticks and blindfolds.
There's a rope rescue team, did you say?
There's a team in Beverly for technical rescue.
Technical rescue?
Yeah, they go all over the country, Dave.
Yeah, they go everywhere. They even go like down south after the hurricanes and stuff. And
A lot of people hanging all over the country, Dave. You got to cut them down.
Is that what it's for? It's just for people who are hanging on ropes?
No, not just for that. But, no, people trapped underground, people get themselves screwed up in so many places, so.
So you have an underwater rescue.
We have a dive team.
You have a dive team.
So that would be an underwater rescue, I guess.
I'm not sure how you'd hang yourself underwater, Dave, but go ahead.
I'm onto other
anchor.
things. I'm fascinated by the fact they have rescue. How many rescue type teams do you have? You have an underwater rescue team?
We have a dive team. We have hazmat. We have a hazmat team. We have guys on the state hazmat team. I called in a hazmat team on Easter one time on the farms because a guy got a mysterious package, white powder.
Back in the good old days. Oh,
And,
what was that, anthrax? What was that back in the day?
Easter
Anthrax?
cocaine.
What's that?
Easter cocaine.
Easter cocaine.
That's what it was.
Oh, okay.
We had the state, hazmat team come out. And the guy's like, the return address on this was actually Houston, Texas. It was a sports card store. And the guy's like, I didn't order anything from Texas, no
Except a pound of Coke, but go ahead.
memorabilia and all that stuff. So then the state police shows up, then the environmental police shows up. I'm like, hey, why are you guys here? He goes, we heard it come over the wire, and the family's all together at Easter, and we told them we had to go. So they use that as an excuse to get themselves out of the family get-together. But, they ran tests on it, and it turned out to be cocaine.
There you go. What a great Easter that was. Back at the police station.
Yeah.
Before 9/11, it would never have been a call. After 9/11, it becomes a crime. Now, nobody has time for that, right? Because you've got a guy saying, I didn't order this.
Well, first of all, he's a fireman. And you open the podcast with, they all know how to do someone else's job better. Why don't you ask me? I'm a cop, Dave.
He's talking to me.
Yeah, I was talking to Fireman Kurt. Fireman Kurt's
kidding,
the guy
Dave.
that our listeners love.
Yeah, they
You
love
and I
him.
have been doing this for a year. Nobody's tuning in. We put Fireman Kurt on, and all of a sudden, we've got millions of listeners.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so that am I right, Dale? That's not a crime, right? Because
they'd have to prove that he actually sent money out for it to be delivered to his house. It's a postal crime, and let the post office people handle it. But you know what, something, Dave? If we're getting back on track, which we probably should be.
No, I'm in no hurry to do that. Jake is thinking about that story. and he's considering it. He wants to give it full attention. I'm just killing time while he does that.
Oh, there you go.
Well, you want to tell your story?
I got a great one.
You got a better one than that one?
Absolutely. It's called the world's largest Ginsu knife.
Ooh.
It happened at an airport. Kurt's story and my story about 100 yards, 200 yards from each other. His was in the woods by the airport. Mine was at the airport. This is a tough one because you have a flight instructor with a bunch of students in a plane, a propeller, a prop plane. So before the plane takes off, the flight instructor notices that a window is open in the front of the plane. So he gets out of the plane with the plane still running. And they put the brakes on, Dave. He just doesn't jump out. They put the brakes on. He's on the runway.
I thought I had another Indiana Jones story.
He gets on the wing. I don't know what he was doing on the wing. I don't know much about planes, but I'm thinking you don't want to go on a wing with the plane going. And he slips off the wing into the propeller, decapitates himself off at the shoulder. Blood everywhere, people screaming. It was unbelievable gore. Friday the 13th had nothing on this. And the big question here was this. Was it a suicide or was it an accident? I don't know that it ever was concluded, but most people in the aviation industry came to the conclusion that you would have to be either drunk, stoned, or stupid, or all three of them, to get on a plane on the wing when it's still running because of just the vibration and the possible slipperiness of the wing.
Yeah.
And he fell right into the propeller and horrified a whole bunch of young kids.
It was like my Indiana Jones thing. It was that Raiders of the Lost Ark scene.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Wow. By accident. Sorry about that, Del.
So the human Ginsu.
That's not bad.
And the caveat to this is Fireman Kurt, after the police cleared, there was a lot of blood on the runway. The fire department came in and they washed it all away with their big hoses.
Hey, there's a tooth.
Did you put it under your pillow?
I did not.
Sounds like a pop pinata to me.
So this was a fire. I'm sorry, not a fire. This was a flight instructor.
A flight instructor, yes.
That must have been one horrible student.
There was a couple of students in the
They
plane.
must have just annoyed them so badly.
I'm not even sure if they continue flying after that. You might be so horrified.
Oh, listen,
post-traumatic stress, Dave. You'll never fly again.
That'd be a tough thing to see.
Absolutely.
Oh,
You don't have a good story, though.
Maybe they automatically graduate.
Yeah, absolutely,
Give us a
brother.
certificate.
Everyone
This guy.
gets their certificate. Everyone passes today.
do I get my hours for this? That's one down for each side. Fireman Kurt, you ready to go?
Sure, let's do it. All right, so this one, has anybody seen my vibrator? So we get to call Unknown Medical, and they get to the house. There's an attractive lady wearing a bathrobe. She says, it's my husband. He's in the bedroom. They're like, well, what's the problem? And she goes, well, follow me. And then you got a guy sitting on the bed, and you hear this hum. And you're like, hey, is there a refrigerator running? Well, what is it? He goes, well, there's a vibrator up my ass. It got away from the woman, and whoop, up it went.
Reverse suction, Dave. I told you about that, Dave. You got to be careful about the reverse suction. Go ahead, Kurt.
The fireman, he says, that was pretty unprofessional of me, but I just looked right at him and said, you got to be shitting me. So he said, no. So in the end, he had to go to the ER to have emergency abdominal surgery.
Like a C-section?
Yeah, that's what they had to do to get it out.
You couldn't push it out?
Well, they got rubber gloves now that go up to your elbow, so.
They didn't have tongs? They didn't have kitchen tongs?
There is tongs. There's some up there. I'm sure little spreaders there,
How about a magnet? I don't know. Dale, you would know this better than me. Can they be magnetized? Can you?
For your friends that happen to be female that like that, Dave,
I like this.
just get a little hook on the end.
Okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't slip out of their hands
I
anymore.
think you need a wristband.
A wristband, something like that. Yeah. You know something? I'm going to trademark something like that.
I think you should I think you should spend all of your time trying to invent.
You want to know who I'm going to call to help me? Remember our guest about 3 months ago, BB, the streetwalker?
You get BB.
Yeah, she'll work with us.
She'll
work with us. Yeah.
You've been trying to find. You have been trying to find every excuse you can to give her a call again.
Absolutely. That's a good one, Kurt. I like that.
It's a lot of mystery.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, one thing that I've learned since I started doing this podcast, people really like to put things into their anus.
Yes. Yes.
And it's not only when you were in prison either, David. People, regular people in society, not inmates, not ex-cons either.
I know. It's firefighters. Who knows this? Cops.
Yep.
And then emergency room.
Yeah,
personnel.
the ER. I went to one hospital. They had a giant wall of things removed from people's asses.
Yeah, we talked about that a few podcasts ago. You remember that, Dave?
It's the same one.
Yeah, same
It's
one.
Probably the same Wall of Fame.
Probably a lot of
Wall of
hospitals.
Shame, maybe? Wall of Fame?
Wall of Fame. Wall of Fame. You got to be proud of.
Call it a
be proud
supply
of
closet.
your habits between consenting adults.
There you go.
All right, Del.
All right, that was a good one, Kurt.
That's
But
a good one.
mine happens to be, honey, I can't find the baby oil. And if you listen to the podcast often, you'll know that any call that happens at around 9 in the morning where normal people are either getting up, going to work, taking a shower, sitting on their couch, having a coffee, or taking the kids to school. When that's not happening and you get a call for a loud domestic at 9 in the morning in a nice, wealthy neighborhood, and we got that call and I showed up with a couple of other seasoned veterans. We show up at the call, we knock on the door a few times, and a lady comes to the door, nice lady, dressed, ready for work. We said, hey, we got a noise complaint that there was some sort of an argument between you and an unknown person. And she says, no, everything's fine. Well, a guy comes, well, we didn't know it was a guy at first. It was a person dressed in high heels, a skirt, a blouse, and a wig and makeup, running around the second story of the house in the hallway, yelling and screaming. And we said,
Wait,
to her,
how did you see him on the? Oh,
it was a large house, Dave. It was one of those big houses where wealthy people live, unlike where you live, Dave.
yeah. I live in a small house in the ground.
Yeah.
With you know what I have on my walls, Kurt? Fireman Kurt. You know what I have on the walls?
Wall of shame.
Nope, dirt. Oh, dirt. I just got dirt on my
It
walls.
was a really big, like one of those 3,000 square feet houses with 5 bedrooms, 3 baths, and about 30 other
So were you
rooms.
saying you saw it from the foyer? Did she let you into the foyer?
We were halfway in, Dave. We don't want to go in. Curiosity killed the cat. We
Okay.
didn't really want to get involved because
All
she
right.
said everything was fine. But this maniac comes running out of the blue, running across the second story there.
Did the person know that the police were there?
I don't
Were they
know.
yelling to the police, or were
They were just
yelling
yelling,
to the
randomly
heavens?
yelling, and we said, who is that? And she goes, it's my husband. And then we said, well, we thought it was a lady. She goes, no, my husband's a cross-dresser.
Okay.
So we keep on hearing him yelling, and we say to her, what's going on? And she says, come on in, you go talk to him. So,
Yeah, you talk to him.
She gave it her best.
yeah, so
Well, not her best. She gave it a pretty good 70% effort.
So one of the officers stayed with her, and myself and another officer went looking for this maniac. It was a
Maniac.
large house. Well, I say the term maniac
It
because
sounds
stick
like
with
a
the
rush to
story here,
judgment.
Dave.
It just sounds like a rush to judgment, doesn't it to you,
Well-
Jake? Jake, what do you think? Is it a rush to judgment, or you think he's going to be proven correct?
I'm not sure yet. I'm still trying to figure the whole situation out.
All right, so we go up to the second story. We go through a few rooms. And the first room we encounter is a large room, probably like 20 by 20. There's a whole bunch of computers, and there's about 5 or 6 computer screens on the wall. And there's all sorts of pornography pictures on the computer screens.
Wow.
We go
So
to
you
the
had something in common with him already.
Absolutely. We go to the computer desk, and the chair was a big captain's chair, Dave, kind of like what you have at your house.
Okay.
Not that I've been to your house, I've just heard stories,
Never
Dave.
have you in.
And
Never have you in.
that chair was covered with baby oil, and there was a vibrator on the chair, and there was porn all over the house. I'm talking child porn pictures, all sorts of videos from Asia, from Europe. So now we're like, we just stumbled into a really bad situation. We probably should have just shut the door when she said everything was fine, but we didn't. We were too curious. We made the biggest mistake we had ever made, because ultimately we found him in another room. And right down the hall, the room was locked. We were able to get into the room. It was a small movie theater.
Okay.
He had his own movie theater.
How were you able to get into the locked room?
Yeah,
we
the cops just
probably
leave
kicked the
that
door
out,
in.
right?
I think we kicked the door in.
Why did you leave? Let me guess. Because he was screaming, so you thought he might be in distress.
Yeah, he was just yelling and screaming. He was actually highly intoxicated, drunk at 9 in the morning, and he was having some sort of a manic issue, and he was just basically out of his mind.
The yelling, don't find my porn.
Don't find my porn. My friend Dave's coming over. Yeah. So once we found that, we had to secure the whole house. We got a search warrant. We were able to confiscate all his porn, all his videos, his computers. He was arrested for child pornography. The big thing about this is, and there's 2 big stories here, he was a computer expert, and in his basement he had 3 or 4 very large computer servers. What he was doing, he was selling and uploading and downloading pornography all over the world. The FBI came in, and they had one of their computer experts, this was like 20 years ago, one of their computer experts come in and try to determine what this guy was doing. They couldn't even figure out what he was doing. So ultimately, he was charged with possession of child pornography and probably did maybe 8 to 10 months, which he could have probably done life in prison if they had determined how he was using those servers. But the greatest minds, and to this day it still haunts us, the greatest minds in the FBI couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
and they still can't figure out shit.
Yeah.
You want to know how the story ended, Dave?
Go ahead.
About a year and a half later, we got a call to the house because no one had, the wife had moved out, the kids had all moved out, the guy had lived alone. I guess the mailman had shown up and there was like 10 days of mail on the front porch, and that's always a bad sign.
Yeah.
So they went into the house, and in the garage, he was in his car was running, he was dead. And all right, if you got children in the room listening now, he had a broomstick stuffed up his ass. He had an electrical cord wrapped around his neck. He was doing autoerotic asphyxia, meaning he was choking himself while he was playing with himself. That's how they found him.
Why didn't he use his vibrator?
I have no idea. I think we confiscated it. It was probably in evidence at the police station.
That's wild.
Kurt, you better up your game here, brother.
So it was an accidental death? He wasn't committing suicide?
Well, I don't know that it was ever determined because a lot of autoerotic deaths, Keith Carradine or David Carradine from Kung Fu, the lead singer of In Excess, both died that way from autoerotic asphyxia, meaning they choked themselves as they're about to finish the act, Dave, and it's supposed to enhance the pleasure. But sometimes they don't come back from that choking and they die.
Do you know there's a movie about that?
Oh, there is. What's it called?
Tony V, Boston comedian, is in it. It's got a lot of scenes with Robin Williams. It debuted at Sundance, and it was really well received in the theater. Bobcat Goldthwait directed it, and they couldn't find a distributor because it's about teenage son kills himself during this autoerotic asphyxia.
Yep.
And Robin Williams is the father, and he discovers it. And he writes a suicide note because he would rather people think that his son died of suicide than of you know what I'm saying? I can't pronounce it.
Yeah.
And I have never seen the movie. I've never seen the movie. It's one of the, like, if you look at the Robin Williams movie, it's like box office killer. Ooh. But nobody wanted to touch it because of the subject
Maybe we
matter.
can get it. Maybe we can do it. Maybe we can do a new release on it.
Maybe we could.
Yeah, Kirk can star in it. You can star in it. Jake.
Why? You
Me, Nathan.
So you're saying
Tony V come back? Tony V's still around. You know him, don't you?
I know Tony V.
There you go.
But why don't we just put out? Why don't we just buy the other movie that nobody wanted to distribute, and we can just
Why don't
distribute
we make our own, Dave? I'm sure you'd love to do it.
Well, listen. I don't know how Jake feels about.
All right, Rattigan, take 20.
The piece of advice for autoerotic asphyxiation is tie low, choke high.
You learned that in the Philippines. I'll tell you that right now.
I think you did. That's just, you guys just are getting grosser and grosser. Fireman Kurt.
All right, on the next one here, what do we got? Chilling on the tracks. You know, we've covered suicide before and talking about this stuff. People usually aren't, I guess, in their clearest thought process. So people jump in front of trains. Well, this lady jumped in front of the train, but it was slowing down to coming into the station. So she gets entangled underneath, and now she's hanging in the undercarriage.
Okay.
And
so she did get hit by it.
Yeah, she got hit, and her back is, up against the bottom of the train, and her arms and legs and head is all just hanging limp. But she was alive. We thought she was dead, and so one of the guys, he's low crawling on the gravel underneath the train, and as he gradually approaches her, she's just hanging there and dripping, and then she hears him crawling, and her head just slowly turns right towards him and just looks him right in the eye. He said that just really freaked him out.
Yeah.
Did she eventually die? Did she die?
No, she lived.
She lived, yeah.
Yeah, she lived.
I've had this theory, or maybe it's not just a theory, maybe it's a discovery. I don't want to screw up anybody's story if you have one. You have another suicide story?
Well, I haven't. No, this isn't a suicide, but it's a train story.
Oh, okay. It just seems like this is a suicide thing, but it's a lot more difficult to commit suicide sometimes than you would think it would be. Because there were a lot of botched suicides, aren't there? That
Absolutely,
you guys have to,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Probably
Absolutely.
for both of you, right?
Oh, yeah.
You have to be committed.
Yeah. You have to plan a little bit. You have to be committed. I think even shooting yourself in the head is not as simple as it seems. Is that correct, Dale? Have you ever tried run into that?
Have I ever not succeeded at it on my own?
Tried it?
No.
I tried it.
I know that Dale was telling me before off the not in the podcast, but he was saying privately that he used to have buddies over and they would play Russian roulette. And then they decided, after a while, this is not for us. We'll just get married instead.
That's a lot better than be married.
But,
it's a morbid subject, and it's a tough subject to talk about, but it's definitely a part of law enforcement, and it has been even more in the last couple of years, and it's definitely a part of law enforcement with the fire department involved also, because the fire department goes on all those medical calls that the cops go on, too.
let me ask you this. Should there be, or is there, psychiatric help for cops and firemen who witness some of these horrible things that we are laughing about on the podcast today?
Liquor store.
Well, there's a lot of self-medication. We know that.
I personally, my time as an officer was at 2 debriefings, mental health debriefings for suicides. And they were excellent. And there was probably 5 or 6 officers all together. And I think it was a couple of firemen. There was a few mental health counselors. But we talked for a couple hours and they went over a few things and they discussed some of the feelings that people were having about it and how to deal with it going forward. It's definitely available. It's just like being in the military, that a lot of cops and a lot of people in the military, firemen, their ego is such that they don't show any weakness. So most of them will not attend.
Right.
And to go is almost shown like a sign of weakness.
Okay. Fireman Kurt, is that your experience as well?
I'll tell you what, they do have assistance is available. Me personally did not go to the debriefing. I was asked, you all right? Or, how do you feel? And I just said, I'm good. Probably used a session or 2. If you ask my wife, she'll tell you I could have used a lot of help.
Yeah, I was going to say probably for all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Kurt was brought up in the church. And back in the days in the church, the pastor would say to little Kurt when he was an altar boy, Kurt, there's going to be a lot of bad things that are going to happen to you at church. I want you to forget about it, because if you don't forget about it when you get a little older, you're going to have alcohol and drug abuse issues, and you might even victimize another young boy like I victimized you. So Kurt learned a long time ago just to put it in the back of his head and don't even remember it.
I think he actually grew up in a trailer park.
Who did, Kurt?
But he got the same speech.
Same speech from the guy next door.
I actually did grow up in a
Minus the
trailer
teeth.
park in Texas.
Well, I tell you the other thing, too. You talked about the service mentality, the Marine mentality. Sometimes people don't want to admit. For those of you who didn't hear Fireman Kurt previously when he was here, he was in 3 branches of the military. He was in the Coast Guard, washed out of that, got dismissed. What do they call it? Dishonorable
discharge.
Yeah. And then he went in the Marines because he figured, how can anyone get a dishonorable discharge?
Yeah, Marines will take anyone.
Yeah, and then he thought he had to work in his golf game, so he joined the Air Force. You three branches of the service. Do you think that they all had the same group attitude towards not getting help for being tough and it being a sign of weakness to go look for help from a psychologist?
Being in the service, that was never addressed. Pulling bodies out of the water in the Coast Guard, you're trying to put bodies in the water when you're in the Marines. Yeah. So, no, it's I would say the mentality in the Marines is definitely
Just suck it up.
yeah,
Suck it up.
We're going to the liquor store. We'll be fine.
Jake,
All you need is a bottle of whiskey and a prostitute, and you're all set.
you always add the prostitute.
Well,
to everything.
it helps, Dave. It helps.
All right, Dale, you got a story for us?
Yeah. So what was Kurt's? Just chilling on the tracks? And mine is, I can beat that train. Same location, right at the depot. There was a college professor driving his 10-speed bike. I guess he was trying to catch the 7:30 a.m. train into Boston.
Yep.
To teach his class. I wish you were that committed, Dave, to get to class early.
Not
This
me.
guy was so committed to get to class early. He drove in front of the train. Obviously, he misjudged the speed of the train, and he misjudged the location of the train, and the train ran him over in front of all the morning commuters. That's commitment, Dave.
That is commitment.
Wants
but
to make sure he gets to class on time because all the kids love him.
Let me tell you this. That's a horrible way to die. That is a horrible way to die.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's weird.
That's awful.
Sometimes you go to those calls and you try to say, what are people thinking?
Yeah.
Are they doing it? Is it an accident? Is it an accident? Which on first appearance, everyone said, yeah, it was an accident. But then there's some small little portion in that guy's head who just said, fuck it.
Right. I think because I've done this story about how drivers will try to beat trains. Drivers, the gate goes down and the driver thinks I can beat the train. Sometimes you can. Most times you can't. And you're not a good judge of it because the train goes a lot faster than you think it does. But even having done that story, more than once. I've had times where I've been at a train and I'm in a hurry and the gate comes down and I just think I could just go around it right now.
I could beat that.
I could beat that.
Right now. We went to one lady did the same thing. She was 2 cars back. Morning commute. Said, I'm going to make it. She went around the cars and the gate. She didn't make it. It hit the tail end of her car and spun her car. She was uninjured, by the way. She just had a bruised thigh. It hit the side of her car, and the car got entangled in the undercarriage of the train and ripped all the piping out that you see on the side of the train. So there it stayed for hours.
Yeah.
It wasn't going anywhere. And that's one of those ones where they bring in all the buses. And that train right there, that was near Nick's.
Not the bus you drove, Dave. The one with the helmet, the short little bus with 3 or 4 of you guys.
I did drive.
Not that bus, Dave.
I did drive one of those buses.
Who gets that bill?
What's that?
Who gets the bill for the
I would think
train?
that the lady does. It's just like people who get lost in the mountains in New Hampshire, the high rescue team that Kurt's talking about, the rope rescue team. They usually bill the victim.
The high rescue team, the rope rescue team, the technical rescue team.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
Well, that's the problem. Just name it one thing. Don't call it rope.
Well, for this podcast, it's the suicide rescue team.
But if you bill them, though, back to your billing, that'd be the cost of stupidity.
There you go.
I always I go through my life, and whenever I make a dumb mistake, and it's like, well, it's a stupidity tax.
You got about 7 or 8 kids running around on that stupidity tax across the country, don't you, Dave?
Stupidity tax.
Few in New York, couple in where else were you a comic? California, Florida.
I've only been I've done it in Dublin. I've done it in Dublin. I've done it in Kilkenny, but really just New York and Boston, and Pennsylvania.
All right, so
a
couple of Rattigans in Pennsylvania. Little Joey
there
Rattigan.
There are a lot of Rattigans in Pennsylvania.
Little Joey Rattigan working for the Department of Sanitation in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, you think?
Yeah, that all worked out then? No, not me. Not me. I'd have to find a woman who would want to have sex with me, which has been, quite frankly, a lifelong quest. All right, so we're in the final round. Jake, what do you think? As we go into the final round, is it close? Do you have your...
It's close.
It's close?
It's heating up, but I'm not sure yet.
All right, well, this
goes.
This is what's going to decide it for us right here. Fireman Kurt, you're going to go first?
Yep.
It's almost like the fact that you're going first on every single round, and Dale goes second, and Dale was the one who set up the contest. It almost feels like.
So your final thoughts would be Dale.
Exactly. There you go. Well, thoughts might be a stretch.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got for us?
All right, this one's called Man Overboard, or A Bridge Too Far. Once again, back to suicide. We get the call, and I think it was 9 o'clock in the morning. Beautiful day. There's a guy on top of the bridge trying to jump in front of cars to get hit.
Was he dressed like a woman?
He was not. And actually, he was only wearing a pair of jeans. Nobody hit him. So the cops on the next town over, they blocked the bridge. Our cops blocked the bridge. We're on shore, right under the bridge, actually. This guy's going back and forth, and the cops go up to talk to him. He's like, nope, not having any of that. He jumps overboard. Wham! 40 feet is the most gruesome belly flop you ever seen. He landed smack on his belly. He didn't dive. So now he comes sputtering to the top. He didn't check the tide. So it's slack tide. It's like landing on a lake or a cement floor. It's not moving. He's not getting swept away. So then he swims over to our side. And as soon as he comes out of the water, the cops walk right up to him and pepper spray him. And we're like, well, our work here is done.
You don't want to witness any of that.
And they took
That's
him away.
CNN News right there, baby. The pepper spray of a suicidal man.
Oh, man.
He should have found out what the other town would have done to him.
Yeah, I know. What would the other town have done?
Gives me the best arrest.
Yeah.
I thought when it first happened, I thought that's a horrible thing for the cops to do, but there's a reason for it. I know there is.
Well, the man could have been agitated. He could have been hostile. He could have came out of the water just very energetic and abusive, and the cop might have felt threatened by the way how quickly the guy was running at him. I would think. I wasn't there. I don't really remember that call. Because
he was red, though, I'll tell you that. That belly flop on that stomach was
Wait a minute. Wait. The guy, what was he wearing?
Pair of jeans.
Just a pair of jeans.
Just a pair of jeans.
So it was a preemptive macing.
Yeah,
just in case.
Yeah.
Okay.
They do that
the only way,
Yeah,
the only way I would mace someone is if he came out of that water, he was still piss and vinegar. He was ready to fight, ready to go, threatening everyone, and you had to give him a calming dose of pepper spray.
Okay, a calming dose. Let me ask you this. You were there, right?
Yes.
There was a guy coming out, and was he, as Dale says, was he agitated and maybe possibly a threat to others, or was he yelling, my belly is killing me?
That's pretty much how it was. Matter of fact, I don't even remember him standing up. He was just on his knees, and he came sputtering out of the water.
We may have to stricken this story from the podcast because this could open an investigation.
I actually think I was probably knocked out of the way by the police officer so we could get in there and spray him.
I got to
They
tell
took
you,
turns spraying them, right?
Yeah.
Multiple cops.
you know that if you were a cop now, listen to that story, you're thinking to yourself, why didn't they tase him?
Every department has their Derek Chauvin. Come on, everyone's got one Derek Chauvin out there.
Well, I know that yours lost one when you retired.
Thank you.
All right, that's a great final story, Fireman Kurt. Now we're going to listen to Dale's. We'll see. Jake, you ready to go?
Yes,
All
sir.
right.
All right, Kurt. That guy survived, but my guy, this is how it's done, brother. So we had an individual who lived probably the same bridge you're talking about. He probably lived a quarter mile from that bridge. And we knew him because he had some issues with not wanting to live. Okay, he had some depression issues, and we dealt with him before. I was working inside that day with my partner, and a lady comes into the station. She says, I'd like to report my husband missing. He went out at around 6:30, 7 o'clock for a walk. He usually comes back pretty quick. He usually just goes to the store, grabs some milk and some Captain Crunch for the kids when he sees them off for school, and it's been over an hour. Well, she's out there, and the 911 lines start ringing off the hook. I start answering them, and people are yelling and screaming. They're coming into the city, 7:30, 7:45 in the morning, rush hour traffic over a bridge. And on the side of the bridge, there's a boat yard. And hanging over the side of a boat is a man, another human pinata. He had hung himself. He just jumped on a boat, grabbed a line, probably a sailboat, strung it around his neck, and jumped off the boat and killed himself in front of probably 200 people coming over the bridge. And we had the lady right there in the station at that moment, and we sent the officers down, and the officers knew who he was because we had dealt with him before. They called into the station, and we said, yep, we have the wife right here.
Ugh.
So we had to break the news. I shouldn't say we had to break the news. We had an officer out there who was very good with people, was very experienced breaking bad news to people.
Yeah.
Consoling.
He was a very consoling officer, so we called him in, and he dealt with that situation. So very bad situation, and unfortunate that people have to go to those lengths because for whatever reason, they just don't like being in this lovely world that we're a part of right now, David. But for whatever reason, he decided to do what he did.
How high was the sailboat?
It was probably 15 feet off the ground. It was on one of those
Oh, it was
Stands.
a stand, whatever you call
yeah.
it.
Okay.
They put him away for the winter.
Okay.
So it was around April.
There was no chance of this guy using a 15-foot rope and dropping and hitting the ground
At
before.
20 feet, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think people like that who are very adamant and very focused on what they're going to do, they know that a short rope, yeah, you're on like you, Dave. You're on a short rope with me, brother.
I'm on a short leash.
A short
I'm on
leash.
A short leash. That's quite a. And,
Yeah, this was a gory one, Dave.
Horrible.
I should have checked with Kirk because we had way too many suicide ones. But you know a little something? It's real life.
Yeah.
This is inside the lines,
It's
real
out there.
stories
That's where
by
people-
real cops. This is what it's about.
Yeah.
That's where
Let me
people
ask
get
you-
messy.
Let me ask you this. This is the morning rush hour traffic. People
Yes.
are seeing it. Why does somebody do something like that so publicly, in such a public way? It was just, by the way, you said he was known to police.
Yes.
Mental health issues?
Yes, he was a hard worker. He was a guy who went to work every day
Okay.
and
That'll do it.
stuff like that. You want to know? I can give you just a quick
What kind of a
story.
job did he have? He was a fireman.
He was a Brazilian guy, and he put tile down. He was a tile
Okay.
guy. He was a construction guy.
Oh.
I can kind of sum it up with this, Dave. We had a guy who found out, his wife didn't know this. His wife did not know this. He found out night before that his wife was screwing around on him.
Oh.
All right. So every morning, he went out for a jog, 45-minute jog. He went out at 6, came home at 6:45, right before to get the kids off to school. Another guy who gets the kids off to school,
Right.
a good father. Well, it's 7:30, and he's not home. She goes, I heard the door slam at 6 o'clock. He's usually home by 6:45. Well, what he did was he went out the front door, went in the back door into the basement, went down the basement and hung himself. But before he hung himself, Dave, in the basement, knowing that his kids or his wife or kids were going to go down to the basement and find him is what they actually did when we were on the phone with her as she was reporting him missing or overdue. He had a note down there. And the notes, what do you think the note said, Dave?
I know what you did last summer.
I know what you did the other night. I know you were messing around on me. I love my kids, and that was it. Sometimes people want to get the last punch in.
Yeah.
They want to be so dramatic with what they do. They want to send a message to the person they love or they thought loved them. This is the message. And that's the message the guy in the boat sent to his wife and the guy who went out jogging down in the basement, knowing the kids were going to come down and grab their school clothing from the dryer in the morning. They found the body and they read the note.
It's so thoughtless to the kids.
Yeah, it's so traumatic to them that why would you even do that? But I think at that point in time, that guy was probably so pissed off at his wife. Look what you made me do. Look what you made me do, and look what position you put our family in and our kids in.
That's quite a. You guys really just
we're gonna do birthday parties or fun events coming up.
Yeah, we do birthday parties. We do birthday parties. Yeah, whatever you want. Birthday parties, bar mitzvahs, whatever you want. Retirement parties. We do it all, baby.
Send us an email, realstoriesbyrealcops@gmail.com, and invite us to your party, and we'll tell you some horrible stories from the streets. As you're thinking about this, let me just ask you this: one thing we've learned today, which we already know, the fact that cops and firefighters often get to witness these wonderful things together and deal with these wonderful things together. One thing we've discussed in previous episodes, cops are a lot like newspaper reporters and firemen are a lot like newspaper photographers in that everybody loves firefighters, everybody loves photographers. People only like cops or newspaper reporters when they think they can get something from them. Otherwise, they would just as soon, the best you can say is that they would rather not see him. They'll speak badly about him, and they'll hate him. Did you say that's right, Dale?
Right on point, Dave.
All right, so now here's a question, Jake. Who do you think's got the harder job? Firefighters or police?
I think that they're pretty even because the firemen get to sleep at the firehouse and police officers get to sleep in their car.
There you go, brother. Yeah, that's even. That's even.
a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And the police officers have their car for recreational activities like dates.
Donuts, street racing.
Dates and donuts.
Yeah, eating donuts and doing donuts. So,
we have the pole.
The stripper pole in the firehouse,
You mean you'd have women at the firehouse, or do you mean you'd work on your moves for your anniversary with your wife?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
All right, now we get to the story. Which one topped the other one? Who's our winner?
I got to go with the guy at the airport. What was this one called?
The Human Ginsu.
Human Ginsu. Yeah, that is quite a horrific scene. You try to picture all these kind of situations in your head, and just from seeing Indiana Jones, that's just right where your mind goes, is just spray everywhere. And a lot of brain matter and guts. And
what's that?
It was a mess.
Yeah, that just says it all.
I don't know. I do kind of favor, and I've heard this one before, but I still love the pepper spray to the guy who failed to commit suicide.
Yeah, that's very funny. I like that. That's good lighthearted humor.
Yeah.
But in terms of the gore and the topping that, I'm going with the Ginsu.
All right, he's welcome back to the podcast. All right, he saw it the way I thought he'd see it.
It's almost like you paid him off before the show when you were handing him that package.
There you go.
Or he's a police officer and he wants something from him.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Because one thing we all know is that at some point in our life, Jake's going to get pulled over for speeding or something else, and he's not going to want that cop to open the trunk. All right, so we're moving on. Fireman Kurt, thank you again for coming by.
Thank you for having me.
Your legions of fans. And Jake, thanks for coming. Jake Hall, comedian. If you're ever in Bangkok, Thailand, the Philippines, Salisbury, Lawrence.
Yeah, right here. In,
Lowell.
Off Cabot and Beverly.
Off Cabot and Beverly. Anywhere
Sammy's
like that.
Patio and Revere. The open mic down there.
Beautiful. Thank you for being our judge and for being our guest on the show. I'm Dave Rattigan. That's Dale Lawrence. And one more time, InsideTheLine.org. Real Stories by Real Cops @gmail.com. Like us, share us. We're trying to build our audience, and we really appreciate you, the listener. And we'll be back next week with more happy stories from the world of the streets.